Hello everyone, Random595 here. Today I'll be making a tutorial on Rogue Fable 4 to teach you about all the game mechanics and controls that the game doesn't explain. There's a lot of things that Rogue Fable 4 doesn't explain, so let's jump right in. First of all, probably the most important is the controls. You can change most of the controls from this menu here. I have mine set up how I prefer. Yours will probably look a little bit different. It is useful to read through and have a look at all these different options to see what you can do. Some of them do nothing. In particular, I believe focus camera and toggle target mode are meant for keyboard only mode and don't particularly work, but everything else is quite useful to read about. Some things are not mentioned here, however. If we continue our game, first of all, the biggest thing that is not mentioned is speed points. If we hover over our speed point bar, there will be a description appearing down here. It will tell us that we can use speed points by holding shift, and it will allow us to sprint without ending your turn. This is an enemy here who is alert. If we do nothing, he will move, but if we hold shift, we can run and he can't move at all, so that is very important. Next up is how to use your weapons. You can't actually rebind them, so it never explains anywhere, but to use your ranged slot weapon, you can right click or you can use Q as the default. If we look under controls, Q is the quick attack. So quick attack is for your ranged weapon slot and auto attack is for your melee weapon slot. If you try and melee attack with tab when the enemies are further away from you, you will step towards them, and the same is true as if you left click on them when they're far away. If they're next to you and you tab, you'll just attack normally, and if you left click, you'll also attack normally. One other thing you can do with tab is if you select a talent, either through clicking on it or the hotkey, number 3 for the third slot, and press tab, it'll automatically use it on the closest enemy. There are 2 more controls that are not explained. If you want to step on dangerous terrain, you need to press Z, the dangerous terrain key, and if you want to hit a fire pot, either with range or with melee, there is a very nice safety feature, which means if you accidentally click one, you don't walk in and break it, but to destroy it, you need to press Z, and then you can either ranged attack or melee attack. Same is true for stepping into clouds. If you want to step in a cloud, just press Z, which can be quite useful later on. They're the basic controls, hopefully that helps. And now we're going to explaining some of the game mechanics. Alrighty, game mechanics. Let's start with the talent bar that we discussed previously. You can use any of the talents on this bar automatically by pressing the related hotkey, which is quite handy, makes playing a lot faster. If you want to move talents on and off this bar, you need to open up your character menu, and then you can select them and get rid of them by dropping them here. And if you want another copy, just click it and put it back. This is how you get doubled up copies. If you accidentally click these and close your character menu, you have a second copy over here. It doesn't do anything. If you use one, they both go on cooldown. You can remove it like that. So that is how you change things around on your talent bar. If you drop an item from your inventory, it may appear that you can't pick it back up. This is a feature, so if you auto explore, you won't keep running to the same item and picking it up. But if you want it back, you need to stand on it and shift click, and that will pick the item up. Encumbrance. What does this stat mean? So encumbrance is how much weight you can carry, and every or most items, rings do not, but most other items have weight. You get encumbrance from increasing your strength to encumbrance per strength, or from specific items in the game. If you go over the encumbrance limit, there are some very bad effects. You'll see that our ability power is going down by 10% per point we're over, and also we cannot use our speed points at all while we're encumbered. That is a very big negative, so it is a bad idea to ever let yourself become encumbered. Two-handed weapons. You may every now and again see your shield going red. This will disable all your shield related stats, and all your shield related abilities will not work. That's because you're using a two-handed weapon. Only melee weapons can be two-handed. Most of them should say they're two-handed weapons. I believe there are a few exceptions. If you do notice one, report it in the Discord, and the description should be updated. Okay. Next up, we'll discuss the defensive stats in Rogue Fable 4. So our defensive stats, the first ones we'll discuss are Reflection, Block, and Evasion. That's the order they're applied in. Reflection will go first, which means your block and evasion will not negatively affect your reflection. They are combined multiplicatively, not additively, so this is not a 140% chance to block all damage. Instead, it's about an 85% chance to block all damage. That's all there is to say about those. Next is protection. Over on the right, you'll see the description. It reduces physical damage by 0 to 4. It is a random roll between 0 and your max protection, so every point of protection will reduce damage on average by half. Half a damage per point of protection. And finally, we have resistance. The way resistance works is it reduces damage by between half and the max amount. So 20% fire resistance will reduce damage between 10 to 20%, or on average 15% damage reduction. That is important to understand. Okay, there is one other defensive stat that is not listed here. It is called strafe dodging. It is actually explained over on this side. I'd never seen that before. You have a 80% chance to strafe dodge attacks. So the way it works is strafe dodge is your evasion plus 20%. And a strafe dodge is when you move when you're inside a enemy's targeting range. There is a apparently 80% chance they'll shoot where I was standing previously. So it's also important that you are dodging in a way that will move you out of the path of the arrow. If I was to move here and he strafe missed and hit this cell, the arrow would still hit me. So if you zigzag towards an enemy or away, you can avoid a bunch of damage. That is a useful tactic to know on melee that have to close in on an archer. They are the defensive stats in Rogue Fable 4. Next up, we'll discuss weapon damage. The way weapon damage works, we can see over here on the right that it has a damage of 6, and then in brackets is 8. 6 is the base damage of the weapon, and 8 is the modified damage. 8 is the number we care about. The only reason the base damage matters is because you are capped at double your base damage is the maximum damage a weapon can deal with bonuses from your attributes. So we can see our dex gives us plus 10 range damage, but we are only getting plus 6 range damage because we're capped. Additional sources of damage, such as through items or talents, will avoid this damage cap. And you can see our longbow is now higher damage than the cap. So that is how maximum damage works. Then there is damage rolls. Every attack you use will deal between 50 to 100% of the attack's damage. With an 8 damage short sword, will deal between 4 and 8 damage on every enemy we hit. This also applies to enemies attacking you and is done before protection. That is how damage rolls work. Additionally, there's critical hits. Critical hits will increase the damage of an attack by 1.5. So the main source of critical hits is unstable. If a creature is unstable, there will be physically critical hit. So a physical damage attack will critical hit them, and this short sword will deal between 6 and 12 damage, multiplying the 4 to 8 by 1.5. Critical hits can stack if you have multiple different types, and there are talents that increase how much damage it deals. That is the basics on the weapon damage in Rogue Fable 4. On to the game mechanics. There is a bunch of game mechanics that aren't really explicitly explained in-game. The first we'll discuss is levitation. You may think if you're levitating, you can hover over a pit for 200 turns, but that is not how it works. You have a 10-turn limitation when you're over a pit, and if you stay for longer than 10 turns, you will fall down the pit. So make sure you step on land before that runs out. If you fall down a normal pit, that'll be completely fine and you'll go to the next level. But if it is the final floor of a zone, such as a side dungeon or the last floor of the game, if you fall down the pit, you will instantly die. So it is very important to know about this. Levitation will stop you from being unstable over different terrain. You will avoid shock spreading through water, but you will not avoid burning terrain. That's the key points about levitation. We'll now discuss knockback. The way knockback works in Rogue Fable 4 is it is based on the enemy size. If you check your race out, humans are medium size, whereas enemies can be small, such as this rat, medium or large. The size of an enemy dictates how much knockback they take. If we knock this guy back in a direction where he can move multiple tiles, you'll see that he moved back 2 tiles. Whereas a medium or large size enemy will normally only move back 1 tile. Additionally, if you knock back enemies directly into a pit, they will instantly die, which is very handy. It doesn't matter how much HP they have. If they don't levitate, they will die. So size also affects a few other things. So the player is unstable on most terrain, but not things like grass or other light terrain. But we're unstable on train tracks, bodies, stairs, vines, rubble, coal, pretty much most things. Stools, we're also unstable on stools like this, and ice. We're unstable on everything, really. Well, with the exception of like grass. Small enemies are unstable on grass, and large enemies are only unstable on ice, water, oil, lava, or toxic terrain. So a large enemy, for example, is an ogre. Let me spawn an ogre in. And you'll see that we are unstable on the coal, but they are not. But if we get them to the ice, they are unstable on the ice. Talking about ice, anything on ice or oil is slippery and will get knocked back, and it is a very powerful mechanic to use. Okay, I think that covers different sizes. There can be more effects. When there's races, the player size affected how much HP they started with and a few other things, but for now, currently, size only affects knockback and being unstable. Now do a quick rundown on how stealth, awareness, and aggro works. It is a very complicated subject, but I will just try and go over the basics. In short, when an enemy has a single question mark above their head, they cannot see you, and when they have a triple question mark, there is a chance that they can see you and wake up. If you have stealth, it will reduce the range they can see you by 1 tile per stealth point you have. So 3 stealth we can get this close, and then it changes to triple question mark. When an enemy aggroes, it starts a timer, and as soon as you're out of vision, there is a 20-turn timer where if they don't see you, they will de-aggro. So you can run around terrain against enemies that you can't fight and waste 20 turns, and they will drop off. Something else enemies do is they shout. So let us spawn in another enemy. When an enemy sees you, there is a 50% chance that they will instantly shout to anything within 6 tiles. So this guy, he saw me and he shouted, so that one woke up as well. Let them forget about us, try this again. He shouted instantly again. It's 50% chance, you can't be sure what happens. This time, he didn't shout, so this guy didn't wake up. If we wait a turn while in vision, he will move and shout, and then this guy's awake as well. Let's try it again. I want another instance where he doesn't wake up. He did. I got it, but then I messed up. There we go. Okay, so he's woken up, and this guy has not. What you can do is you can leave line of sight, and if you are out of line of sight, this guy won't shout and wake that guy up. So it's very important to know. Whereas this time he was in sight, so he woke that guy up. So one of the tricks you can try and do is step just in range of one enemy and see if they wake everything else up, and if they don't, run away and then pull just one enemy at a time. It's a very important little trick. What else can we explain about aggro? I think that's everything I'm going to explain right now. If an enemy is sleeping, they only hear shouts from half the range, so 3 tiles away instead of 6. And that's everything. It's a lot more complicated subject. There are many different tricks and things, but just understanding the difference between 1 and 3 question marks and how stealth works and how to drop aggro, I think they're the key points and will be enough for this tutorial. We'll now be discussing the effects of line of sight. Controlling line of sight, or being in vision of enemies, is very important in Rogue Fable 4, as most enemies can't summon or use their special abilities like summoning a totem if you're out of line of sight. As we can see here, he can summon because he can see us. Whereas, if we run here, and he wakes up, he's not going to summon. Every turn that he can't see us, he can't summon. And then as soon as he sees us, he can summon again. So we can actually control the fact that he's summoning or not, just by running away. If I hide here, he won't summon all the way until he gets here, and now he has a chance to summon. So it's very important to control that. And you can do the same with enemies that drop totems. As long as you stay out of line of sight, they won't drop that pesky totem that heals everything. That's the main thing I want to explain about line of sight. Something else I've seen asked occasionally is how do you get through the gate to the Vault of Yenda? There is this gate here at the bottom floor of either Dark Temple or Orc Fortress, which says you require 2 runes to unlock it, and there's only 1 rune in front. There is 1 rune always right before the gate, and the other runes will be in the side dungeons. So side dungeons are located on the 2nd and 4th floors, and if you go down at the bottom floor of the crypt, or whatever side dungeon you get, and at the bottom floor of the 2nd zone side dungeon, there will be a rune. You only need 2 runes in total, so you have to complete at least 1 side dungeon to unlock the gate to Vault of Yenda. Another mechanic to discuss is clouds. Clouds have a few things to know. First is that fire clouds prevent projectiles from being shot through them. If you cannot shoot through a fire cloud, it burns them. And when I say projectiles, I mean most bow attacks. The hand cannon is immune to fire clouds, and all staffs will be able to shoot through, but any normal bow projectile will get burnt. Very important to know. Something else you can do with clouds is you can replace them with another cloud effect, and it stops them from spreading and makes them harmless. It is very handy to know. If they're poison clouds, you can also burn them with any source of fire. One other thing you can do with clouds against enemies that like to use clouds. Let me make a fire wizard. Okay, so we'll let this guy shoot me, and he shoots a firebolt. But what you can do is, using an ability like Sleeping Bomb, is you can block their fire clouds, and that gives you many turns to do whatever you want. Yeah, that's just a little trick with clouds, is you can block them like this, and then he uses firebolt, and then you can just shoot him to death. That is some tips and tricks for clouds and explaining their mechanics. A common complaint I see about the late game is skeletons, and the fact that they can be raised from the dead. There are some things you can do about that. If you kill a skeleton on normal ground, that will create a body that can be revived. Like that. Whereas if you kill them on unstable terrain, or any terrain, doesn't matter what it is, whether they're on blood, stairs, this, rubble, as long as you kill them where there's something else on the floor, you can even kill them on top of other skeleton bodies, and then you only have 1 body. As long as you stack them, you can stop the resurrection. Also, if you have to, you can stand on a body in the middle of a fight, which can be handy. Say you kill a lich on one side and a second lich is coming, you can rush over and stand on the lich and kill the other one with ranged attacks. As long as you take care of where you place the bodies, it should be quite manageable. Hopefully that helps. Now we will discuss different terrain. So there are obstacles considered low obstacles in the game, such as crates, and there's obstacles considered like full obstacles like trees. Unfortunately, there is no description as to which is which. You will have to learn through trial and error, or just trying to judge by looking at them. You can jump over low obstacles and shoot over them. You cannot jump or shoot over high obstacles. I have suggested that it is added to the description of the items, like a lot of these things in the tutorial I think should be part of the game. But for now, you'll just have to try and see which things you can shoot over and which things you can't. Hopefully that's everything that I wanted to discuss in the tutorial. I'm going to be making a second video that describes a bunch of enemy and player abilities and how they work. If there's anything you don't understand about the game or the mechanics, please let me know in the comments or hit me up on Discord and I'll be happy to explain. Alrighty, good luck out there getting that Goblet of Yenda. See you guys next time.